And the way we spend even our money is silly because it's very slow. If you take the 5-6 big companies in the world, they're investing together in the next 3-4 years, $3,000 billion into AI. And Europe is investing something like 56 billion. I think yet that neither the people nor the politicians are ready. We have to let go the companies which are not made for the future, and we have to focus on what is the future.
Dr. Cornelius Conny Boersch is the founder of the global company builder Mountain Partners, as well as the global co-investment company Conny Co.
There's a lot of talent in Europe that is not staying here, but how can we change this? How can we punch in the face all these people and turn head Mertag? Why this event?
I think we have to really have this discussion as a society, what we want. I try to bring talented entrepreneurs together, politicians, investors, in order to get to know each other better. There is no right that we always stay number one in Europe just because it has always been like this. So we have to fight for this, and we have to team up with other countries.
Hello, everyone. My team and I have been crafting content and stories that inform, inspire, empower, and bring real value to you. If you haven't already, please take a moment to check that you're subscribed. It's the easiest way to support our work and stay updated with every new release. Join us on this journey of learning and discovery. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for our latest drops. Hello, welcome to the Dinis Guarda YouTube podcast show, powered by citiesabc.com, businessabc.net, and wisdomia.ai. We'll keep bringing to this series global leaders and personalities shaping the world and as well inspiring. Today, I'm particularly interested to introduce Dr. Cornelius Boersch. Dr. Cornelius Conny Boersch is the founder of the global company builder Mountain Partners, as well as the global co-investment company Conny Co. Dr. Cornelius is also the president of the Unternehmertag, the Entrepreneurs' Day, one of the most exclusive conferences in Europe, at the Tegernsee. He also initiated and regularly holds speeches at universities or tech events all over the world. As a business angel, venture capitalist Dr. Cornelius has invested in more than 300 companies since 1995 and was voted European Business Angel of the Year in 2009. Cornelius Boersch is a European investment fund, EIF certified super angel, which means that subject to certain restrictions, the EIF matches all of his startup investments 1-to-1. As an entrepreneur, Conny previously founded the stock-listed RIVD-based companies ACG, SmartTrack, and Identiv, as well as the cashless payment systems provider Sandpiper. Politically, Conny acted as advisor to Dr. Guido Westerwelle, former president of the German Liberal Party, FDP, vice-chancellor, and Foreign Minister of Germany from 2009 to 2012. Conny was named Entrepreneur of the Year in 2000. He studied at the European Business School in Oostenrijk-Wijnkel and earned his PhD from the University of Essen with a thesis on venture capital and investing. He later also acted as honorary professor and held lectures at the University of Essen.
I'm very excited to be today here in an episode that will portray someone that I've been probably following and admiring for almost a decade, and someone that has been bridging a lot of my passions. First of all, true passion for life, which I think is the most important thing. Second, passion for entrepreneurs, for business, for putting people together, and the technology and the innovation. And third, as well, a person that has been thinking the world we live and the way we touch this. And as well, I would put a bonus, is an European convict like me. I still believe in Europe. So I welcome to our series Dr. Cornelius Boersch. And it's an honor to have you here finally. I wanted to do this for a long time. So I want to start by one question that probably will be going to your genesis. I know that you are a person of values and as well a person that has been doing so much things and touching thousands or millions of people around the world. But the first thing is, if you go back to your childhood and your parents, I know that your parents were important for you. what would be the thing that you feel, or the person that influenced you more and make who you are today, or one of the things?
For sure, my dad, because he helped me, really to grow up. I had it was not so easy. I was suffering from dyslexia, and I was probably one of the worst in school. And so there you need strong support, somebody who believes in you. But the game changer was for me that he came home one day after a weekend, and he went to a seminar, and he got to know Dennis Waitley, a psychologist, and a mentor and a book writer about psychology of winning. And I was at the age of 12, and this, had a huge effect on me. He said, listen to those tapes. Back those days, there were no CDs, so it was tapes. So, and then I started to listen to this, and then this had the biggest impact on me, because this psychology of winning was, what are the pattern of the most 1,000 successful people in the US? And and then I started to really think about it, and I started to transform. And I think when you are young, then you can change a lot, and it's all about best practice. See, this is probably one of the biggest problems we're facing in the world. Usually, the best practice is from the parents and from the teachers, but I think we can do better than that.
That's wonderful, and it's wonderful that your father push you forward and made as well that change in your perception and a lot of things that we touch. So one other thing I want to touch. So as someone that grew up in Germany and as well went through a lot of decades of transformation, and as well then now we live in Switzerland, a bit of your German background, because I think people when they look at the countries, they look at kind of, okay, we are all Europeans, we are all decadent, or you are all Americans, we are all pro this. So, but there's a lot of nuances. I would like to hear a bit, because I know that you are a person of culture, but as well a person of respect for the legacy and tradition, but as well German and Switzerland.
Yeah, first of all, I'm a proud European, and I feel a little bit sad that we could do better in comparison perhaps to the US or China. But Germany is still the third largest economy in the world. I mean, soon it will be India, but until the moment, it's still Germany. So I think it is a powerful country, but of course going a little bit in the wrong direction. But I am proud, of course, of this legacy we have of history, culture, but also how beautiful the countryside is, and I like the people. Their people are not as boring as you might think, and we are also not as accurate as you might think. So things have also changed. But what we are facing in all over Europe is an elderly society. So we're getting older and older in Europe, and this has, of course, an effect on future growth. And so therefore, but we will talk more about it in a second.
So touching again on Europe and your education, because I like to touch this, because of course, as we were talking before, the two of us, when you look at everything happening in the world, there's a tendency to put things in boxes, and most of these boxes are full of cliches and full of problems, because of course the world is not black and white. There's a lot of layers. So I want to touch a bit about the love that you have for Europe, because I think that's important. And as well, I think one of the things that we take for granted is that Europe achieved the most advanced development in terms of society in the planet, in history, both in terms of education, health, and even lifestyle, let's put it that way. And I know as well that you as an entrepreneur have been always nurturing this ecosystem, especially from Germany and Switzerland to the world, but as well a lot in Europe. So I would like to touch that, especially from your more personal level, before we go to the profession.
Yeah, see, I studied in Germany, I studied in France, in the US, and of course I traveled a lot. Actually, the last 30 years, I was every week in a different continent. So see, we have the tendency to criticize, of course, and also including me, but life is getting actually better and better. literacy is going up, we live longer, life is more exciting, we can travel better, health is better, everything is actually getting better. But if you feel the sentiment at the moment, like the atmosphere in Europe, it is very negative, which is kind of sad, because economy very often is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we are all negative and we as entrepreneurs, then, well, we are not investing. And this is what we are seeing now. We lived too much on the past. So, we missed some of the achievements we have done in the past to repeat this. Sometimes you have to pivot or you have to reinvent yourself. And this part is missing. See, the key areas where I believe the world is heading to, AI, and new other technologies, we don't see too much here. And most, I'm a venture capitalist, so I'm meeting a lot of young people, and I'm looking at 5 to 10 ideas a day since 30 years. And, and we are just too afraid. The entrepreneurs are sometimes too careful, think too small. The investors are all chickens. They prefer to invest in real estate. And about politics, I don't have to talk. I mean, everybody knows this. That's, but what do you expect? And then of course the bureaucracy regulation. So that makes it difficult. So sometimes I feel like we have to really restart, and this is perhaps what is missing a little bit. But perhaps we will find a way to restart. And we are realizing in Europe that it is one of the biggest economies in the world, Europe. And together we are very strong. See, the last 5 years I'm investing in defense. And I'm not afraid of Russia at all. Because, the GDP per capita is like nothing. And 30% of the Russians don't have toilets. So I'm not very impressed by that. The economy of Russia is anything. They cannot compete. I mean, it's a fraction. The economy is a fraction of what Germany alone is. So therefore, I don't think this is sustainable at the end of the day. And the reason why I'm investing, of course, I'm very upset with Russia because, we had peace for so long. And I think I really felt we are one Europe. And, all my Russian friends I have, I mean, I like them a lot. But now what's going on, of course, it's horrible, it's devastating. And this is of no help. But it might be a wake-up call for all of us.
I want to touch what you just said. So as a fantastic, successful person, you've been a business angel, venture capitalist. You work with the government of Germany, where we actually were advised to the vice chancellor. You were as well invested in over 300 companies. I think the number probably much bigger than that. You were nominated the European Business Angel of the Year. And as well, you are an European Investment Fund certified super angel. So I want to touch, from your career, first of all, a bit of a history of your career for people that don't know, but as well, how you created all of this, and as well, what drives you, because I think, like you said, on the negative, there's always the positive, and you have that wonderful smile of passion for life, which I admire.
Yeah. So no, I started at the European Business School, and I became an entrepreneur already during my studies. By the way, which I highly recommend, to start as early as possible, because then you have less to lose. And so therefore, becoming an entrepreneur, you have to be very brave, because if people would know before how difficult it is, probably they would not start. So I'm supporting, any entrepreneur, and I admire anybody who is willing to change something, because what is missing in Europe is this entrepreneurial spirit, and we need more entrepreneurs. And what was shocking a little bit for me when I was an honorary professor at different universities here in Europe, is that when I asked the question 20 years ago, what do you want to do? Then I want to become investment banker, or I want to go to McKinsey. And this has changed slightly, but not enough. We need more entrepreneurship, people who are willing to go this path and try new technologies, invent something. So, but so I started studying this, and then I started my first company called Sabeco GmbH, Sabine, Bernie, and Conny GmbH. So it was a plastic card company. One day somebody asked me to put a chip on it. This became a smart card. Then there was no operating system for smart cards. I developed an operating system. And and then one day, I don't know, came quickly. It was a $2 billion dollar company, which when you are very young, which is kind of cool. Back those days, this wasn't really a lot of money. And the reason why I'm here in this amazing podcast is because I was just lucky. I sold the company 2 days before the crash. So I wouldn't be sitting here if I would have been late a little bit. And so that, what it means, it's also luck is important, timing is important. I try to always analyze what is coming up in the future. So the difficulties for an entrepreneur is you have to develop you have to go into a market where there is no market in order to be there when the market is coming. And to survive between when you enter the market and the market is really happening, this is the struggle we have here, especially in Europe. So that's not easy. And of course, when you sell a company for a lot of money, then then you think what you can do next. And then I thought, hey, I go a little bit in politics because I met this guy in a talk show. He was the first gay foreign minister. We liked each other very much. He became the godfather of my kids, and we did. We did a lot of things together, but it was interesting for me to see politics because it was not so much about money. It was I really wanted to change something in Europe, and also realizing then how difficult it is, and how much politicians are also working. It does not help us all that we just beat up politicians. It is not an easy job, and but we have the wrong incentives, that we are sending the wrong people to politics because it's not very, very interesting. So we should not just blame them. If it's so important for us, then we should go into politics ourselves. So that was the political side. And then, I got more and more involved in foreign policies, with Arabia, with other topics. But what I actually did is I started in 97 to invest in my first companies. And until now, with my own money, in 450 companies since then. And I started many funds, especially in emerging markets, because what I liked always was this excitement in new markets. So I went to India very early, to China, to South America, to other parts of the world, and to invest. And it's not easy because, emerging market plus a new idea is a recipe for disaster. But of course, the future is with those emerging markets. So that's the reason why I went abroad, and now we became the largest, one of the largest VCs in, for example, Latin America.
So first of all, congratulations for these fantastic achievements. So from the 400 companies, you dealt with 400 entrepreneurs, founders, and all their teams, and of course, I'm sure thousands of people around that. So from these 400 people, what do you think is the most important trait of resilience to be an entrepreneur, especially in the world we live now?
Yeah, I think it's good that you mentioned to be resilient. It is. It always takes much longer than we expect. It's not easy to be an entrepreneur, and so and my role was always that I'm a mentor, a coach for entrepreneurs, mainly for unicorn entrepreneurs, because we are all the same. We all have the same problems. We have problems how to bring job and family together, that we don't get burnouts, mental health, a lot of topics. And I learned this over the time, how important it is that you coach those entrepreneurs, because I feel sometimes they are very lonely. And it's very important that you share experience. And I would like to motivate everybody who has some experience and who's a little bit older now to support young entrepreneurs with on their journey, because it's very rewarding, perhaps not always financially, but it's very rewarding when you can see you can make a difference.
So let's talk about that, because this is something very personal for me as an entrepreneur, and I'm Portuguese, a bit French and European, and it's funny because in Portugal and France, being an entrepreneur is kind of like a curse. I don't know, probably France is worse than Portugal. And we have that problem in Europe. I think is one of the curses of Europe is that we don't respect entrepreneurs. So as an entrepreneur that is so passionate about solving problems and as well, like you said, mentoring, following up, being resilient, I would like to touch. So, for instance, from your work with these entrepreneurs, because 400 is a lot, and I'm sure some of them success, like you said, unicorns, others probably failures, because there's always a big percentage of failure. I would like to look at the failure, because I think that's the biggest elephant in the room, how we deal with failure and how we deal with that, like you said, the family balance. Because, for instance, if I speak with my French part of the family, oh no, balance, lifestyle balance is more important than anything else. But then, of course, they are all dependent on public things and stuff like that, and they are always on the edge. So I would like to touch this, because there is a big difference between Europe and the rest of the world as well. Because in China, people work 7 days or 8. In the US, they have like 1 week of holidays if they like per year. And in Africa, there's no holidays, and in the rest of the world, so they just have to survive. So I want to touch this from your experience as an entrepreneur and the leader of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, failure is a big topic. See, I was wrong most of the time in my life. So, when you invest in young companies, I mean, most of those companies fail at the end of the day. But, they don't count, because a few are successful, which overall then it's a kind of a lucrative business. But you have to be very patient, because the reason, let's say, why venture capital in general is not working, especially it's not working in Europe, it's too much money for too much risk, and it takes too long. See, I don't feel like an investor at the moment in Europe. I feel like a collector, because I pile up more and more companies. I'm still a shareholder in more than 150 companies at the moment. And, because there are no exit channels. And how can I do new investments if I never get something back? It's not that bad. So I can still do this, and I'm very active on it. But I wish our ecosystem in Europe would function much better, and more people would invest into this asset class. Because the problem for some of the entrepreneurs is that they are spending 70-80% of their time on fundraising instead of focusing on the company. And in the US, it's much different, and also in China, it's very different. So this is one of the problems we are facing here. So failure, yes. To tell you really the truth, I was lucky a lot of times. 4 or 5 years ago, I was not lucky. I tried to acquire a big part of FC Barcelona. I wanted to bring them into a SPAC and take it public at NASDAQ. And personally, I've never lost more money in a single transaction in my life. I think I've lost more money in this transaction than in all my other transactions. And because people pushed me and said, "Hey, Conny, you have everything. How about if you go out of your comfort zone and you do something bigger?" And then I said, "Well, okay, that sounds exciting with FC Barcelona." And it turned out to be a real disaster for me. It did not work. But now looking back, I have to say, well, it changed me also. I'm much more conscious now. I much more appreciate what I have. I enjoy life, because I have seen now for the first time that nothing is granted. It's like, you have to fight for this every time again. And so now I'm back to full strength. I'm in a flow. I'm enjoying life to the fullest, really, for some years now. And I hope I can continue like this.
Oh, thank you for sharing. That's I think in my case, all my biggest failures were my best successes, because after that I become stronger. So I hear you.
But I would not repeat it. Honestly, if you would ask me, I didn't sleep for 1 year. At nighttime I woke up, and I worried so much, and I felt so bad about my money, but also the money of my investors and my staff and all this, and then you think, oh, how could this happen to me with so much experience? You look like an idiot. But this is how life is, And by the way, I have no issues to talk about all my failures and problems. Nobody is perfect. And I think this is what we have to get out of this Instagram world where everything is amazing and awesome and whatever. We have to also be open and say, just be human. and show what your weaknesses. I could talk now if you want to the next 2 hours about my weaknesses and failures, but I don't know if this would be
very
inspiring.
important. No, it's very important. So my next question is about your PhD. So you studied, like you mentioned, in the European Business School in Maastricht, Winkel, and you earned a PhD from the University of Essen on a thesis of venture capital and investing. So I would like to touch that because I've been as well teaching in business schools in Copenhagen and as well in London and in France and in India. And there's a lot of differences around the way we teach young people. Like you said, you became an entrepreneur while you were still studying. I did the same. And it was fantastic because it allowed me to think out of the box. But most of the education systems are getting out, especially as we get into AI, is even more kind of crazy. But I want to touch on your PhD because to do a thesis on that, being an entrepreneur, you have to look at yourself like an X-ray and take it forward as an academic.
So I would not recommend this to anybody to do a PhD. It's good to make a reservation in a restaurant. This is Dr. Boersch, but otherwise it's of no help. So I wouldn't do that again. It's a waste of time in a way that if you like to think and if you like to work for many years on a topic, then it's okay. But otherwise, for me, it was very painful. It took very, very long. And realizing that most of the professors have actually no clue about how the real world is going on, like especially in economics. They're very theoretical. They have no business experience. I have 2 kids at the moment. 2 of my kids are studying at business schools. And what they're teaching, I think, is not relevant at all for life, because I know what I'm looking for as an investor and as an entrepreneur, and the people are not getting this skill set. They're learning about old history and statistics and marketing and stuff. Why should you make calculations in mathematics if you have a computer? It doesn't make sense. But all the stuff which is relevant and important is not taught. So therefore, we have to change radically, especially the way we teach. I was a professor for almost 2 decades on this, and seeing how theses are written and how people evolve, and I think we have to change that a lot. It has to become more practical so that they're ready to use these skills, and especially look at AI. There's very little going on in AI at European universities. Why? Because to change the curriculum just takes so long. And I think we have to become, resilient. This is one, but we have to become more flexible. And we have to adapt to new technology or new trends. So if we see now that the future is AI or other technology, then we have to adapt, and we have to, take this also into the universities.
100% with you. So let's look at your biggest companies. And of course, like you mentioned, you have a fantastic portfolio. So at the moment, your major organizations are the Mountain Partners, which you've been leading since 2004, and as well Mountain X. So for people that don't know about it, if you could explain, and as well, I want to, of course, highlight for our audience the impact that you've been having, because you've been having an impact massive in the ecosystem of Europe, but like you mentioned before, in India, and the rest of the world, you mentioned Latin America. So about the companies, about the work you're doing.
So Mountain Partners was my family office in the beginning, and then more and more people asked me, can I co-invest with you? And then we started funds globally and whatever, so the rest is history. We always wanted to focus on early stage. I don't know if I would do that again, because it just takes very long and it's a little bit painful. And then Mountain X, 5 years ago, I co-invested and founded a company called Dinis, now the largest drone manufacturer of Europe. We're one of the main suppliers for Ukraine. And this is how I got very deeply into this defense space. In politics, I have been involved in this before, but as an investor, as an entrepreneur, not, because I thought if people like me are not investing in this, who should? I don't know if you remember, but still 5-6 years ago, this was an area where nobody wanted to be involved in. It was considered in Germany as something really evil. We always said porn, oil, and defense. Those are three things we should not invest. But then I saw that we have to defend ourselves. Germany especially had no equipment. We had ammunition for 1 day. I think we really did a horrible job, and we didn't see any innovation for 35 years. And I thought, wow, this is probably the biggest hype I've ever seen, the biggest mega trend I've ever seen. So we did not invest for 35 years. There was no innovation. And then the natural competitors like US and China will not be included because Europeans will buy European. Then I thought, hey, that's me. I have to jump into this. And I started Mountain X with an impressive bunch of other people from MI6, from Israel, from former generals, politicians, whatever. But I tell you, it's still difficult fundraising in Europe. People are still very slow. Why in this defense area? Nobody is allowed to invest yet. So there's no venture capital and private equity yet. It will come. Government money is planned to come and will come, but it's not there yet. All the banks is very difficult. I mean, until 2 years ago, you couldn't even open a bank account in Europe if you were involved in defense. So, but I'm very optimistic that it will be very, very good. Lots and lots of money is floating into this area. So I can highly motivate everybody to go in this defense area because we have to be able to defend ourselves. We should not rely on the US, especially when Trump is there.
So one question on this, and I think especially from going from the theory to the practice, you touched a lot of different things. One is the fact that it's very difficult to raise money for defense and for innovation around that. The second is that is a global ecosystem, and further, of course, the challenge is even on perceiving of this. So, of course, the defense is about planning, is about different areas. There's cybersecurity, there's deepfakes, there's geopolitics. There's a lot of different things that are very complex. Could you, for people listening to us, and especially young people, because I think one of the challenges we have, like you mentioned, is not just for government institutions, but there's a lack of perception what means to defend ourselves and what means to own our sovereignty, our geography, and a lot of our values. So if you could highlight that, and as well how you are taking this, you mentioned then MI6, Israel, and all that stuff. What kind of solutions? You mentioned drones as well. I would like to just demystify from the theory to the practice.
Yeah, so I believe that there are two main game changers in this, in the war of the future, or future of the wars. That is AI and drones. So if you look at all the effects, at the moment we are buying the wrong equipment from the wrong people. The survival rate of a tank is whatever, like 6 or 7 minutes. Airplanes or helicopters you cannot use at all anymore. So we are still buying equipment, which is not necessary. Why? Because it's a super corrupt system. That they know each other all for 30, 40 years. All the generals or admirals are working now on the big primes, and the last 5 or 10 years before they go before they go in retirement, they know that they will get a job when they retire for one of the big firms. So what are they buying is, of course, the established, the old equipment. And it shows very precisely how long it took us as Europeans to acquire any drones. We know the drone make the difference, and we have now seen it in the last couple of months that a few people with drones can defeat, destroy an entire battalion of a German high-equipped army. So it shows that we have to do something. And so I focused on, and in the beginning, people said, oh, you should go in surveillance drones. I said, no. I mean, we need attack drones. So I invested in several drone companies, but also in ammunition and other tech. But my main focus is AI at the moment, because I think AI will make the difference. Unmanned vehicle and AI, we see it at the moment, is the game changer also for the drone business, because it's not just target recognition or terrain recognition where you are. it's as many other things behind it, swarm technology, etc. And there I see huge opportunities in the next couple of years. And actually, this morning I already looked at 2 new drone technology providers from all over Europe. So we are really waking up. And I'm not afraid at all that Europe is ready in 3 to 4 years, that we are able to defend ourselves. And look at the budgets now. I mean, Germany's budget alone is as big as Russia's budget. And Europe has something. We have enough soldiers. We have actually enough battle tanks, whatever we have. But we did not have enough ammunition, and we did not have the right mindset. But this is changing now. On this regard, I'm very optimistic.
Oh, fantastic. And I like to hear that. So I want to touch on the AI part, because I know that is an area very important for you and for me. So when you look at the context of the AI landscape, at the moment, we have mostly two major forces. So you have the US and China, let's put it that way. Europe is almost silent. And to be honest, even I have a friend of mine that is one of the biggest minds in AI. And even him, that is actually very kind of liberal and very open, he said, Europe, you guys, the only stuff you do is regulate things. You don't create anything. And he did a serious joke, because it made me think, because if you think like this, we have still a big problem of perception. But if you look at Europe, I think probably the biggest breakthroughs we have is some top foundational companies like Mistral AI, like Forest Labs in Germany, Aleph Alpha in Germany as well, and Stability AI in the UK. And of course, the Gemini was created in the UK. So how do you see this landscape of AI, first of all, from creation of the LLMs and these major global infrastructure foundation models, which Europe definitely is out of the game? And then as well, the enterprise and apply AI leaders. And like you mentioned, there's AI applied for defense, there's AI applied for governments, there's AI applied for infrastructure, education, health. And of course, German, well, is still the second biggest engine in the world, let's be honest, after China. And in terms of automobile industry and engineering is still the biggest, with companies like Siemens and so forth. So I would like to hear your opinion on that, both as someone that has been on working with governments, but as an entrepreneur, and as well as someone with a big understanding about these areas.
Yeah, so I think you mentioned it already. America innovates, China replicates, and Europe regulates. So before Europe starts with anything, we already think and discuss regulation up and down. And so we missed this game of large LLMs, AI completely. So even if you take Mistral or so, we are not in the top 50. But it also shows a little bit the amount of money we're investing. So if you take the 5-6 big companies in the world, they're investing together in the next 3-4 years, $3,000 billion into AI, including infrastructure, etc. And Europe is investing something like 56 billion. So I don't have to explain much more, and the way we spend even our money is silly, because it's very slow. It's like driven through the EU, European Investment Bank, and all this is kind of ridiculously slow. So I think we missed that game completely. The problem is, eventually those companies in the US, but also perhaps China, they want their money back, the money they invest. They want to have it back with return. So we Europeans are becoming a little bit like milk cows, that we pay already, like 800 euro for services of US tech companies per year as any person. And this will increase. So we are completely dependent on America. And there are a lot of things which are not okay, because look at the entire discussion with tariffs. Donald Trump did not include that Europe is far behind in buying services, that we buy a lot of services from the US. Yes, we also export more goods to the US, but we also buy. So the difference is much less than Donald Trump expressed it. And so I don't think that the tariffs are fair. So and we also have to, of course, look at the discussion on TikTok, whatever. We have huge discussions, or look at the discussions we have at the moment on artificial humans, etc. So I believe the large scale AI is a big threat to us, and the applications I'm more optimistic, because especially the applications in the B2B area, I'm very optimistic. If you see at the B2C, I think there we have no chance anymore. We don't have any major unicorn which is involved in this at all. And I'm of course, I find it nice what Mistral is developing, but it's more a little playground. This is nice to have, but it's nothing we can compete on a larger scale. So I think we have to really have this discussion as a society, what we want. How are we going to make money in the future? How are we going to make money in 10 or 20 years from now? And I promise you, it will not be automotive industry. It will not be banking and insurance. It will be technology. It will be something new. And this discussion we have to have. And we have to let go the companies which are not made for the future. And we have to focus on what is the future. And but at the moment, I give you just an example which comes up to my mind. When the Chancellor of Germany or the President of France is traveling with his airplane to any country, there are the typical suspects sitting next to him. The CEO of Siemens, the CEO of Bayer, the CEO of Deutsche Bank, the CEO of whatever. So, but you never see a startup entrepreneur. So our mindset is still the old-fashioned European companies. And just to give you, to make it clear how big our failure was, one single US company, take NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, whatever, take any of those, they're worth more in market cap than all German stock-listed companies combined. If you take Apple, it is worth more than all stock-listed German and French companies combined. A single company. So why is it so dangerous? Because they can refinance themselves very easily. So for Tesla, for example, still today, it would be easy to buy Stellantis, Daimler, Volkswagen, BMW, Porsche, all of them together, and they could just use your pocket money. And I know that was difficult. I give you an example. I visited Tesla in the year 2012, I guess, and Mercedes-Benz was a shareholder in Tesla. And then a few years later, I saw how a really stupid CFO said, we sold our shareholding in Tesla for a few billion. And he was so proud about it, realizing now that those 10% would be many times the market cap of the rest. So we have done a lot of things wrong. And but it's more to look at the past in order to make it better now.
And so I want to touch this because this is kind of course, we completely agree. I completely agree with you. But the challenge is Europe is still one of the major economies in the world, and I agree. For instance, the market cap of NVIDIA is actually the market cap of UK, close to German GDP. So effectively, we have as well a paradox. But there's another part that is for me very important, is that a lot of these people that are creating all this innovation in all the other companies are actually coming from Europe and coming from China. So there's as well a kind of and I know that you're very focused on ideas and talent. There's a lot of talent in Europe that is not staying here for the reasons that you mentioned. But how can we change this? Because it's obvious that if we don't change this, it'll become a colony of the US or a colony of China, which partly we're starting to become, which is a paradox. In the beginning of the 20th century, we were actually the ones colonizing the world. Now we are being colonized by the rest. So I'm being provocative, of course, but it's actually quite realistic. So from your experience, both in government and boards of companies and as well with international organizations, what are the things that you think, how can we punch in the face all these people? Like you said, we have to punch them in the face, because if they're not, they will die. It's like a patient that if you don't give them sometimes something, yeah, you know what I mean.
But look on politics to make it clear. And I know it's a little bit provocative, but if you would tell FC Bayern Munich, that all the players, including the coach, are not allowed to earn more than 10,000 euro a month. Guess how long Bayern Munich would play in the Champions League? Not very long. And this is our problem. We are sending people to Paris, London, and Berlin, which for them it's a huge achievement to be in the parliament. But in the times where you have to negotiate it with multi-billionaires and autocrats like Trump, or with those Elon Musk of the world, I think our systems are not competitive enough. So therefore, we have to have the discussion on are we doing not just the right things, are we doing it the right way? And I know Friedrich Merz quite well. I think he's trying very hard, and all those politicians, they are trying very hard. But do they have the skill set to discuss with other billionaires and with successful, very harsh people? I don't think so. I give you an example of Switzerland. Switzerland sent the president to Trump, and that was a horrible meeting. So afterwards, after the meeting, Trump said, well, you have 39 billion you have a surplus of 39 billion with us. So the tariffs for Switzerland will be 39%. Makes sense, huh? And then, well, Switzerland was really, upset about it. Said, well, that can't be true. And then a billionaire of Switzerland went to Trump and the CEO of Rolex, and they brought some nice watches along and some gold. And then the tariffs went down to 15%, much better. So see what I just want to say is, I don't know if we have the right people also to face the problems of the future. And they're all nice people in Berlin, but not really competitive, not really where you would look up to. And as long as we have, if we want to live with mediocre, solutions, then it's fine. But I give you another example. We are still spending 30% of our budget at the EU to subsidize agriculture. I mean, I'm also, of course, happy that farmers are doing well, but is this really the future? Or is it more AI? If we would direct this money into AI, I think we would be much better off. But there is no willingness, neither in France nor in Germany, to make really radical changes. And this is also one of the reasons why we have now more and more tendency to vote for nationalism, for radical people, which is really not a good solution, because people feel that something is not going into the right direction. And this is what I'm really afraid of. So we will have this discussion, but at the end of the day, I'm optimistic. Changes will come because the power of the market. We lived too long on the big wins we did in the past, and we did not adapt, and we became a little bit slow. But the market will teach us at the end of the day. So the changes will come. Perhaps we are losing some years with this. It would be nice if we would change on our own, but I don't think yet that neither the people nor the politicians are ready.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of but I think, like you said, is where people like you, like me, have to have an action. And I believe that I think Europe is a democratic ecosystem, for good and for bad. There's a lot of opportunities as well to change. So coming back to a lot of positive things, I want to touch. First, I want to touch, you mentioned that you work with the Vatican. I don't know what you want to put public, but I want to touch that, because one of the things that Europe has, and I think on the positive side, is definitely we have one of the best education infrastructure ecosystems in the world, actually the best, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And then secondly, we have as well a lot of values and lifestyle success that is unique. And I know that some of this lifestyle became laziness, and it became a kind of a way of people just not taking responsibility of their lives. But at the same time, there's this kind of statistics and facts that are realistic. Like, you cannot just put that in the garbage. And as well, one thing that coming back to what you mentioned before, the scalability in terms of technology. For instance, if you look at the quantity of money being put in AI, in the end of the day, the only way this bubble is not bursting is because it's actually eating the rest of the world economy. So we're actually replacing the world economy with the AI economy. But at a certain point, there's only so far you can go. And then, of course, you have the AI data centers and everything that will come out of that. Because, for instance, by 2030, the energy consumption of AI data centers will be more or less the equivalent of entire Europe and Japan. So energy, I mean. So there's a lot of things that are quite interesting to do. But I want to talk about the values, because I know that you work with the Vatican, you work with governments. And I know that although you are a pragmatist, you are as well a person of thinking. And I think ideas can only change the world. It's only ideas. I don't believe that you can go with the economy for a while. At a certain point, the economy alone will not, especially if the economy doesn't work.
Yeah, so to disclose, it's a group of 15 experienced AI entrepreneurs, professors came together at the Vatican in order to discuss, the threats of AI, but also the chances of AI and what kind of effect does it have on church, but also on religion, and what can the Vatican do in order to give some guidance to lead this into a better future. And the discussion was really interesting. We spent together also many weeks and months before, but also then some days together in one room, and that was really interesting to hear. And the views are not really different. So all the professors are very afraid of what comes up with general AI, or there are a certain threats. So I think all of them agree that in 5, 10, or perhaps latest 12 years or so, AI tries to take over humanity, or tries to take over, or to play a much more important role. And perhaps they don't like, at the end of the day, what humans are doing. And so we will see some fights coming up. That is one threat. And the other threat is, of course, if AI becomes cheaper and cheaper over time, that bad people might use it. And AIs in general are not built to be protected. They are built to be open. So, we already have deep fake. We have a lot of problems already coming up, and I think this is just the beginning of the problems we are seeing. But what I'm, as a European, more afraid of is that we don't have AI in Europe, that we are dependent on the US or China on AI, and that I'm very afraid, if the AI is dominated by those two countries entirely, that this is a big threat for national security, but also for our wealth. So I am, in a way, very optimistic about AI, because I think there are big opportunities as an entrepreneur, as an investor. But at the same time, I'm also very much afraid of what is coming up. And the point of no return, that is perhaps the most interesting part. Can we still do something about it? And a lot of people say, well, we still have a few years. But the AI is not like pulling the plug. You can just go out of it. Most of the professors I talked to and experts, they said, well, the point of no return was many years ago. So we cannot change it anyhow. And if you cannot change it, well, then why worry?
No, I'm with you, but I believe that one thing as a technologist that it perplexes me is it's actually very easy to replicate these models. I think it's just laziness, because you can create an LLM with right now the fraction of the price that you guys in Silicon Valley did it just a couple of years ago. So I don't understand why Europe is not creating our own sovereign models. But well, I know I've been out of this, because I think this is one big thing, because it's actually quite easy, to be honest. I think we just need half of the fraction of the money that was necessary. But I think that's a paradox on that. I know I want to be conscious of time. So you organize a lot of events and you put great speakers talking. So I would like to touch, at the moment as we speak, you are organizing one of the biggest events that I've been very excited as well, that is going to be in March. I don't know how much you want to share, but I know there is a closed invitation, but it's a very big event where you actually are putting together some of the major global thought leaders. Is Unternehmertag. So I'm sorry for my German. But the title is partly the great reshuffle. Who holds the cards in tomorrow's world? So I would like to touch this, and I think it's something we've been touching. But why this event? And I think you have some of the most important personalities of governments, institutions, technology in the world here. I would like to hear about it and what you want to share with our audience.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm doing this for 20 years now. See, at the end, what I would like to advise for the people, especially the younger ones who are listening now to this podcast, is, networking is everything. Networking is key. Your net worth is your network. So who do you know? And this is important. So, always work on it, that you go to events, that you get to know people in person, and that you team up with them. So a long time ago, after I sold my company, I said, what is next? So I thought, well, I want to become the biggest networker in Europe. And then I said, well, you cannot go with lunch and dinner. You cannot become a networker, because that's not good for your body either. But also you cannot meet as many people. So I started 30 years ago to invite people to events. And so a long time ago. And since then I'm doing this. And for me, is if I take 2 or 3 days of very qualified and interesting people, then I want that they are entertained very well. To most of the events I go to, there's not a nice hotel. Like in the VEF, there's a traffic jam. The service is not good. The speakers are very average, etc., etc. So I never really liked it that much. And so I thought, let's start something with great wine, great speakers, great hotel, great spirit. And I'm very proud that I always say I have an asshole-free zone, so that I really try to invite really nice people. So, and you can feel it with the atmosphere, that people who are there are open-minded, are funny. So I'm very proud of this. It's really roughly 700 people are there. And then I always open the speech with this and said, hey, there's no asshole in this room. Then I make a small pause and look around and said, okay, I have to correct myself. I missed one or two. And that's a ritual now for 20 years. And we discuss interesting topics, and it's about reshuffle, who's holding the cards in tomorrow's future. It's really interesting. So let's take a positive aspect of it. If Eric Schmidt or others are right, then the AI is the biggest revolution of the last 1,000 years. And see it this way, we are part of this. I mean, isn't that cool that we can, during our lifetime, we see the biggest changes, and we are part of the most interesting developments. And so I think we should not just focus on the negative, also on the positive side. I already mentioned most of the things are getting better. We live longer, we enjoy life more, etc. But at the same time, we are part of something amazing. And we actually, until recently, we didn't have wars for 70 years in Europe. But perhaps we became a little bit too lazy. And this kind of event, I try to bring talented entrepreneurs together, politicians, investors, in order to get to know each other better, because this is one of the big problems still we have in Europe. The CEO of a large European company, if you try to make an appointment with him as a startup entrepreneur, it does not work. It takes 8 weeks, and you are humiliated 5 times by the secretary of him. So there is no way of that they can honestly work together. This, old established company, low on innovation, and this very great spirit, young, small company. So this does somehow not fit at the moment. And I try to bring together those companies, and we have a Shark Tank there. We have interesting speeches, etc. So, and also this is an interesting part now, that everything is new. So also for countries which have, are emerging or developing, it shows that the future is with countries like India or Indonesia or Malaysia. So there is no right that we always stay number one in Europe just because it has always been like this. So we have to fight for this. And we have to team up with other countries. And this is what I like very much now, that we Europeans are opening our gateways to South America, to India, to Southeast Asia. So if America does not and China does not want to deal with us, then hey, then the smaller ones have to get together, and we have to find a way on how to work together.
No, I love it, and I think we need much more of that, and I think that spirit is what we need, and that's, I think, one of the wonderful things about your energy and capacity to put people together. So I want to touch, I know that I passed more or less the time, so one last two questions. So the first one is, one of the things that you are very vocal is your passion for life. And I know that is a passion for life, but as well a passion for work, and that you put all of this together. So how do you work this passion for life with being a father, being an investor, being a thought leader, being as well a financier and investor?
So actually, I published a book. It's called One. It's a coffee table book, and this book is. I wrote down everything I knew. And see, at the end of the day, we have only one goal. We should have a happy life. This is the ultimate goal we have, why we're here. So we should enjoy life. And people like you and me, when we get old, then at the end of the day, we say, well, this were the positive things in life, you know, my marriage, my work, my career, whatever, my kids. And the negative was the divorce, the tax authorities, blah, blah, blah. But overall, I had a happy life. You can find this in 5 Regrets of Dying, in books, in similar books like this. What I find very important, my kids came one day to me and said, Dad, you're successful. Is there anything you can give us, you know, and you can write down for us so that we can learn? And then I was looking around and said, well, no, actually. And I started to write. But then I met this one person, you know, it's called Life Book. And he divided life in 10 chapters. I did pretty much the same. Mental health, physical health, networking, spirituality, family, partner and sexuality, etc., etc. So over this, and then I said, in those 10 chapters, what am I doing? What is science saying? And what are other known people doing? Because at the moment, younger generations, they have to learn all this over and over again. And I was wondering why there was one phenomenon what I was not understanding. The more rich the people are, the more unhappy they are. So I met all those billionaires around the world, and they are unhappy. And then I was wondering, why is this the case? Because if you are not on a certain threshold in all those 10 areas, you don't have to be super, but on a certain threshold, then you cannot be really happy. And at the end of the day, our brain is a reptile brain. It was, you know, developed 1 million years ago. And the idea was to be skeptical, you know, because the optimist was eaten alive by the lion, you know. So you had to be negative in order to say, oh, behind the bush there might be a lion. So most of our thoughts are negative. 70% of our thoughts are negative, but this is not appropriate for the time. So you have to look at the things positive, you know, fake it until you make it. You know, you have to see the positive part, because we know from many studies in the US that optimistic people make better decisions than pessimistic ones. So therefore, you know, try to focus on optimism, try to focus on happiness, and also, you know, start to journal. Because if you want to have, you know, at the end, you want to know what were my magic moments in life, then you have to write it down. And you cannot start at the age of 80 to write it down. You have to do it constantly, you know. And then when you write down something, then write the positive one. And here, this book is written mainly also with AI. You know, the photos are all AI, so it's a very colorful book. And I'm more than happy to share this book. So that is, you know, this is where my optimism comes from and my joy of life. And I'm very proud that people say, "Hey, you are one of the most happy rich people we have seen so far." And yeah, I'm very optimistic also still about the future, even if I was a little bit critical on where we are. But this is also to wake up people that we have to change something.
So the last question, and just we will highlight your books. There was as well the book that you wrote, the Summa Summarum, and as well the one, I'll read it in English, the title, The Summa Summarum of Politics and Business, that you co-author with Guido Westerwelle, that was the former Vice Chancellor of Germany and Foreign Minister. So for people listening to us, especially young people, because like you mentioned, I think you and me still had a generation that we had some kind of clarity that we could have a future. And now everything, like you said, is open for good and for bad. But I believe in you that there's a lot of great opportunities. I think with quantum computing, we can actually reverse engineer if we don't let the machines take over. But my question is, what are the 2 things or 3 that you say that is mandatory? And you touched a couple of them, but for young entrepreneurs listening to us, I think everyone needs to be an entrepreneur, but for people listening to us, especially the young ones, whatever they are in the world.
Yeah. So first of all, enjoy life, because don't start too late, and enjoy life, and be present and be conscious about life, be present in the moment. Don't be on your phone the entire time. If you're sitting in front of somebody, get to know this person and be interested in this person. So this is one which is important. Then, of course, work on yourself. Try to get better and better. Try to eat healthier, mental health. Like do things what you should do, because then of course deal with technology. Become an expert in something. Become an entrepreneur, become open-minded, become tolerant for other ideas, and I'm always excited when I see young entrepreneurs coming to me with a new idea. And honestly, the best ideas are still in front of us. Sometimes we have the feeling everything is invented. No, it is just starting. So there are still plenty of things you can do, and have a good life, a successful life, because a successful life is much more enjoyable than a non-successful life. And I think everybody can have it. That does not mean you have to become rich, but you just have to also enjoy what you're doing.
Well, a fantastic and inspiring way of wrapping up.
So Dinis, you mentioned it. We have, perhaps you and me, 12,000 days left until we, let's say, are 90. So 12,000 days sounds a lot, but it's not. $12,000 is not so much money. And what it means, every day is so precious. So it is important with what we spend our time, with whom, and we have to appreciate this day. So for me, every single day is a celebration of life. And and I sorted out many of the people who are stealing your time. And but since I became conscious about that, we're talking about days we have, it changed my life completely.
So first of all, I want to thank you personally, because as someone that has been always admiring your work, and as well your passion for putting people together. And it's not easy. 400 companies, ups and downs, 400 egos, multiply by 5 or 10, and a lot of different things, which is implies, and the energy that you keep and that wonderful smile. And I think it's important that it's sharing to people listening to us. So thank you. Kudos to you, Dr. Cornelius, as a fan, and as well a learning that we have to learn with you. I wish you all the best. For people listening to us, we'll put all of this information, all the fantastic list of companies, so of course not the 400, but some of them, and as well achievements, the event information. And please engage and follow Dr. Cornelius. He's as well available in a couple of places. We're going to put the links to. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching this episode. Please share your thoughts, questions, or a topic you want next in the comments section. My team and I read them all and will tailor our future videos around your feedback. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next drop. Until next time, stay healthy and informed.